Master Saturn here with another BDSM United podcast in our BDSM from A to Z, or the ABCs of BDSM series, whatever you want to call it. Before we go any farther in this series, let's stop for a moment and let's confront a controversial and really kind of a hard topic head on that often arises when we're discussing BDSM. The limited perspective of the general public who believes that one person striking another person for any reason, for instance, is abuse. Some some rather routine BDSM activities such as slapping, spanking, flogging, impact play in general, and so on can be alarming if you're not used to BDSM culture. In fact, such activities could be considered illegal in many areas if witnessed by law enforcement. And so you definitely want to check your jurisdiction. It's your responsibility to make sure that before you do anything BDSM or S&M related, that you check and adhere to the laws in your jurisdiction and in your area, wherever you're located. We're global, so different countries have different laws, different states and provinces and things have different laws, different cities have laws oftentimes. And so you definitely want to check, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you're following the law wherever you live. Uh, so, but it's an important, but uh, while BDSM activities may appear superficially similar to, say, assaults by an abusive spouse or a domestic partner, they are vastly different in reality because of the underlying intention, because the intention is totally different, and because consent is so important, and things like vetting, making sure you have a partner that is compatible with you, so that you're not trying to engage in kinks with that with people that may not be that they may not be consenting to or be interested in, and negotiations, so you know what people's limits are, and you make sure that you're getting explicit consent for the different elements of the scene. Excuse me. So the intention and the fact that consent is involved is totally different between BDSM activities and abuse. Pardon me. The official distinctions between S&M and abuse were carefully formulated by more than 20 organizations at a leather leadership conference held in New York City in 1998. The conference concluded after creating a statement of principles and guidelines that was intended to help law enforcement and social service professionals around the world understand the difference between abusive relationships and consensual S&M. We're not going to go into all of that, but we're just going to talk about some of an overview of that principles and guidelines that they came up with. But we're pretty sure that if you search it on Google, you may be able to come up with it. S&M is a complex group of behaviors between consenting adults, involving the consensual exchange of power, oftentimes just temporarily for a scene, and the giving and receiving of intense erotic sensation and or mental discipline. S&M includes intimate activities within the scope of informed consent that is freely given. Abuse is physical, sexual, or emotional acts inflicted on a person without their informed and freely given consent. The S&M, leather, and fetish communities recognize the phrase safe, sane, and consensual as a brief summary of principles guiding S&M practices. We also go a step further from safe, sane, and consensual, And we talk specifically about RAC, which is risk aware consensual kink. We're not sure if in 1998 RAC was a motto that people used. I can't just off the top of my head think of when RAC came about, but in 1998, we're pretty sure it was mostly safe, sane, and consensual. So that's why we're going through that. Safe means knowing about the techniques and the safety concerns involved in what you're doing and acting in accordance with that knowledge. Sane means knowing the difference between fantasy and reality and acting in accordance with that knowledge. Consensual means respecting the limits imposed by each partner at all times. Safe words represent one of the recognized ways to maintain limits to ensure that each participant can end their participation with a word or a gesture. Um, Informed consent must be judged by balancing the following criteria for each encounter at the time the acts occur. Was informed consent expressly denied or withdrawn? Were there factors that negated the informed consent? What is the relationship of the participants? What was the nature of the activity? And what was the intent of the accused abuser? Whether an individual's S&M role is top or bottom, abuse may exist if you answer no to any of these following questions. So pay attention to these. If you answer no to any of these questions, then abuse may exist, maybe something you want to check into further. Are your needs and limits respected? Is your relationship built on honesty, trust, and respect? Are you able to express feelings of guilt or jealousy or unhappiness? Can you function in everyday life? Can you refuse to do illegal activities? Can you insist on safe sex practices? Can you choose to interact freely with others outside of your relationship? Can you leave the situation without fearing that you will be harmed or fearing the other participants will harm themselves? Can you choose to exercise self determination with money, employment, and life decisions? Do you feel free to discuss your practices and feelings with anyone you choose? Now, notice these are not talking specifically about power exchange relationships. These are talking about top and bottom scene type S&M relationships. Power exchange relationships, there may be you may give up or exchange your power for being able to have self-determination with money, employment, and life decisions if you choose to consensually enter into an MS dynamic, for instance. So we're talking here about being the top and the bottom in a scene or a series of scenes. If somebody is therefore uh, taking way too much power way too early, because a top and a bottom scene is not a place for someone to institute a MS pseudo relationship. It's just you can definitely role play anything that you want, but it should definitely be a fantasy and not a reality. It shouldn't be somebody holding you as a slave against your will, for instance. That would be abuse. Let us be clear that an abuser's victim may well be their own partner who they believe that they love. However, the perpetrator and the victim may have very different beliefs or attitudes about whether a particular set of behaviors are simply part of a submissive's training or outright abuse. Abusers may use a number of ways to control their victim, none of which are acceptable in the context of a consensual, negotiated relationship. These actions cannot be stopped with a safe word, and they can include physical abuse, hitting, punching, choking, kicking, slapping, shoving, beating, leaving marks that you didn't consent to, or using weapons outside of a contract or scene limits, and not respecting safe words. If someone pulls a gun on you or pulls a knife and you're not in the middle of a gunplay or a knife play scenario, that's abusive. Uh, if someone is attempting to do a mind fuck on you, but you haven't discussed anything about mind fucks, that is pretty abusive. Uh, Defending these non-consensual physical actions as the way real S&M works is a slap in the face to our culture. Psychological abuse, also referred to as emotional abuse or mental abuse, is definitely different than consensual emotional sadism or sadomasochism. It involves near constant criticism, ridicule, false or misleading statements, criticizing their interest in something, humiliating or degrading them in public or private outside of the scene limits, and not respecting safe words. Such abuse is often associated with situations of power imbalance, whether within a relationship or in a workplace or just in a top and bottom scene. Sexual abuse, forcing sex, specific sex acts, or sex with others. Refusing to practice safer sex, refusing to negotiate or not respecting contract or scene limits, forcing S&M acts during sex if they didn't previously talk about those things, having unnegotiated rough sex, or defending these non-consensual physical actions as the way real S&M works. Again, that type of abuse, that type of sexual abuse, is a slap in the face to real BDSM. Economic abuse. This is a big one because a lot of times there's a blurry ethical line between things like FinDom or ProDom, which would be like professional Dom. So you definitely want to take into account that economic abuse is a thing because there's predators out there looking to control you or overpower you economically. Controlling economic resources, stealing money, credit cards, or checks, running up debt, forcing you to live above your means, fostering total economic dependence, using economic status to determine relationship roles or norms, including the purchase of food, clothes, etc. Uh, outing. Outing is using awareness of fear or hatred of certain marginalized groups in our society. Threatening to out someone as being into S&M or being LGBTQ, being polyamorous, or being an illegal immigrant. Using society's prejudices as a way to control a person who is part of a marginalized group. You should never, it is always abusive if someone outs you in our community. Keeping someone's privacy is essential to our types of BDSM culture. You don't need people in the vanilla world oftentimes don't need to know everything, especially if you are in the type of career where that may have moral or ethical guidelines imposed on you because of that, such as a doctor, a nurse, a healthcare professional, a kindergarten teacher, a school teacher, substitute teacher, a daycare worker, different types of things like that, different being a judge or a lawyer, perhaps being a politician, anyone outing you is a form of abuse. Some people have the false idea that SSC, or safe, sane, and consensual, was originally formulated purely as a public relations move to make kinky erotic practices seem less threatening to vanilla folks outside of the scene, while those within the scene know better. But that's not so. As used today, playing by SSC standards means that you're playing with colors. It means that if the sensation gets too intense, the bottom can say yellow to slow it down, red to stop the action. Playing with colors means that the bottom has control over the BDSM scene. Yet also the top has a level of control too, because they can use colors and they can use safe words as well. SSC was created in response to the internet. Before the internet, most of BDSM was localized, perhaps regional, but it was contained within leather bars, leather clubs, S&M clubs and bars. It was uh, it was local groups, and they had local creeds and mottos, and they had an understanding of how they did integrity. But when the internet came around, it made BDSM global, and there was no longer an ability to have uh, local club creeds and mottos be applicable to everyone. And so the SSC and RAC and PRIC and some of these other safety mottos are more universal ways to to inject safety, or have a motto for safety that is more global, where everyone everywhere can know about uh, the ethical standards and the safety standards of BDSM. So safe, sane, and consensual was actually born in response to the internet. To When people find things about BDSM on the internet, they're not often hooked up with a local community. So you used to hook up with a local community first and then experience BDSM, and then generally learn about BDSM and learn about how to do BDSM. And now people read about it on the internet, and some people never connect with the local community. Although we advise against that, especially when you're new, it's really good to connect with local community. You can often find events listed on FetLife. That's one of the easiest places these days. There's a lot of crap on FetLife too, so don't get caught too much on that site, or caught up too much with things and classified ads and all those kinds of things. But you can definitely look at fetishes and research more using something like FetLife. But the gold of a site like that is its event section, allowing you to RSVP and be vetted for events. So SSC was created in response to the internet, when local community wasn't uh, is sometimes bypassed. So by playing by SSC standards, the top is agreeing that the activities are not intended to cause damage or harm in the legal sense. Both parties are agreeing that the overall intent of their S&M scene, their play session, is to have fun, fun for everyone involved, or to derive some type of pleasure. When the scene ends, both people should be talking about getting together to do it again. They shouldn't be having to worry about, injuries and harm. You're following SSC guidelines if the top takes reasonable precautions to avoid causing harm that would affect the bottom's ability to go on with life. And the bottom is physically and psychologically prepared for the proposed activity, and has disclosed to the top any relevant medical or psychological disabilities, any use of drugs, and any personal limits that they either cannot or will not do or accept. I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast when we're talking about something that is the ABCs of BDSM and talking about the difference between abuse and BDSM and talking about some of the ways that you can diagnose whether something is abusive or not. And you definitely don't want to throw around this person is an abuser, especially if you haven't communicated well. Don't call somebody an abuser in our lifestyle to cover up for a lack of communication on your part, for a lack of vetting on your part, for a lack of negotiations on your part, for a lack of agreement, a lack of being explicit, for a lack of using your safe words or using plain language to tell somebody to stop something. No, I don't want to do something. No, I don't think that would be a good thing to do. Sometimes people that are new in the lifestyle come in with this I have no limits and we can do anything and I'll try everything twice mentality. But there are just some things that you need to communicate. There's just some things that you don't want to do. There are some limits that all of us have. All of us have different limits, and my kink may not be your kink. And it's perfectly okay. And you need to know that. So just that's the final balance to that is if you start throwing around and calling somebody an abuser and they are not an abuser or they're not a predator, they're not fake just because you didn't communicate well. It can you're calling somebody an abuser or a predator and their reputation is on the line. Their integrity is on the line. So you definitely need to make sure that you are, considering and communicating and doing your things. And that's not to say that you should, that's not to tell anyone um, not to speak out if you've been abused. It's just saying to make sure that you're communicating well, that you're doing your part, and that you are doing your research, doing your homework, doing your communication, and if somebody doesn't respect you in any way or disrespects you in any way, blacklist that person, ghost that person, walk away from that person, tell others if you need to about that person, because predators do not belong in BDSM. We do not welcome them here in any way, shape, or form. I'm Master Saturn. Thank you for joining me for this BDSM United podcast. You can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. It's a joy speaking with you today, and I'll talk with you again soon.